And welcome to Thursday, April the 9th. This is a confidence on camera tutorial lesson. We are talking on Thursdays about industry things. Today we're going to talk in detail about some of your materials as an actor. Specifically, we're going to talk about your resume, and we're going to go through resume formatting in some detail. But before we get there, just the top level industry thing that's important to understand so that you kind of know why this is important is, and I talked about this last week, and I'm going to keep hitting it because it's really basic and it's really easy for actors to get confused about it anyway, is the actor's food chain. So the producer is in charge of the money. They're in charge of the money, which means that they make the final decisions about who gets cast, and they bought the script, they hired the director, they are making the final decisions about everything because they're in charge of the money. The director is in charge of the story. The director is a storyteller who's in charge of the story. And so the director, works with the person who's the director of photography, who's setting it up all visually. But the director is basically in charge of how is the story being told. The person who is in charge of the money obviously makes the decision about the director and is sort of above them on the food chain. Then the person who's in charge of the auditions is the casting director. That's what we're going to see tomorrow, Candace Elzinga. So to be super clear, the person we're going to see tomorrow is a casting director. Casting directors are in charge of the auditions. This is something that I'm going to ask you before we go so that you can feel confident about it when you talk to Candace tomorrow. That means that the director and producer, they approach the casting director and they hire them to run an audition. And so they say, okay, put the word out to the talent agents. Talent agents, the next spot on there. Talent agents are in charge of the actors, right? They're basically a salesperson whose only job it is to sell actors. So these two people, producer, director, they talk to the casting director, say, hey, tell the talent agents we need actors. They tell the talent agents say, hey, I represent these actors. I think they're great for this role. You should see them for an audition. The person who chooses who to see for an audition, the casting director. They then send the tapes for those to the director and producer. The director and producer decide who to see for a callback or a second audition for the same role, or for very small roles, sometimes they just decide, okay, book that person. So they don't decide who gets cast. They do 100% decide who gets to audition. Now, you should ask Candace about this if she doesn't talk about it tomorrow, but last week, Judy Lee said that she gets between 80 and 200 submissions minimum every time there's an audition that comes up. And she usually sees 8 people, maybe 10. I think she said, well, I try not to see, less than 8 people. And so that means that every time there's an audition that comes out, every single talent agent that has somebody that's right for it is like, hey, you should see my actor. They're amazing, because they're salespeople and they want to eat, and they only eat if you get auditions and then book work. They only take a percentage of what actors make. They're saying, hey, can you please give my actors auditions? And the casting directors are going through the list of those people, all just this size, thumbnails with the teeny little letters underneath. They're not even seeing your resume yet. They're looking at those and they're deciding from those 200, yeah, these 8 people, those are the ones who I want to see for this audition. And again, really, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch Judy's video from last week, because she said straight out, well, first I bring in people I know, people I've already cast, people have already auditioned and know their work, and I know they're right for this. And then they're going to bring in a few more. And what she said last week, and I've heard from all the casting directors I've had in for workshops, and I will have casting directors in, every week that I can in summer, and every week that I can in spring break. So I've probably sat in on 100 casting director workshops at my own school since I started in 2002. Not an exaggeration. And so I've heard this over and over and over again, that it's only if you make that short list of like, okay, I've got the people who I already, I already know them, they've booked work, or I've booked them or I've auditioned them and I know who they are. And then those last couple of spots for the audition, if they like the picture, they're looking at the picture and they're like, yeah, something about this person's picture is grabbing my attention and seems to be telling the right story for me. Only then will they look at your resume. And then they're looking for things like, How much experience do you have? What kinds of things have you been in? Are you making it really easy for them to see? Are you taking classes, and who are you taking classes with? Where are you taking classes? What kind of special skills do you have? If it's the kind of audition where special skills are going to be useful and relevant. If they need a skier, well, they're going to look for, are you a skier? But think about that quantity of submissions, right? 200 people, they're kind of narrowing it down. They're going to choose like maybe 5 or 6 people they already know. There's really only like 2, 3, 4 spots for people they don't know yet. Though that's when they're looking at your resume. And you are not the only, that's not the only character they're auditioning for in that day. They might be seeing 6 or 8 different characters in a day, right? They might be seeing hundreds of people in a day when they're actually running the auditions. So all of this is context for why your resume needs to be, in my opinion, needs to be something that tells the story that you want it to tell in about 10 seconds. Your resume is not like a work resume. It is not a first I did this and then I did this and these are all the things I did in the years that I did them. Your resume is a marketing tool that the people who make decisions are going to look at for 10 seconds to decide whether or not you fit what they have in mind. And so if you can, try and wrap your head around how do casting directors look at this? What information are they looking for? And make that crystal clear and easy to recognize. And I'm going to go through that in as much detail as I can. So the end of the actor's food chain obviously is you. And if you remember this from last week, actors are in charge of myself, which means that you are in charge of keeping your resume up to date. You're in charge of picking photos that represent you well. You're in charge of keeping breakdown services and casting workbook accounts up to date. You're in charge of taking little clips either from class or from projects you've been in and making a demo so that you can show agents or so your agents can show casting directors, even if that's as simple as taking clips from class, putting them on YouTube as private links and sending those to your agent. That works. Like in the last couple of months, I had a student, she came in for a coaching. And so she forwarded me the whole conversation with her agent. And so I got to see that her agent had sent a series of YouTube links to the casting director, saying, here is some footage of Sam, so you can see why I think she's so right for this character. And so the casting director must have clicked on one of those. Well, her resume is interesting, but like, let's see what she's actually like when she's acting. Oh, look, she actually knows what she's doing. So it doesn't need to be fancy. And next week we can talk about headshots and demos. Maybe I'll get somebody to come on who knows a little bit more about the visual side of things. The resumes, those I can talk about in detail. So let me show you the resume template that I've got here. And then we're going to go over some resumes from you all. So share screen. Okay. Okay. So this is the resume template that I put together for students. This is currently on the Confidence on Camera group on Facebook, if you want to get a copy there. It basically says in writing some of the things that I've just said out loud. Your resume is a marketing tool. It's not a list of everything you've ever done. You want to think about the way decision makers are looking at this. One easy mistake that I see a lot, especially on the kind of resumes people send talent agents, is they put, these are my qualities, or this is my age range, or like, this is who I am, or the type of characters I can play. They've got a photo for that. That's what your photo does. Recognizable professional credits get listed first, then amateur or indie or student credits. I'll show you the pay grades, and then skills go at the bottom. Film and television first, then commercials, music, video, industrials, then theater and live performance. And again, we're looking from the perspective of either casting director, who's, who is this person and do I bring them in for an audition? Or a producer and director who's like, well, I really like this person's audition, but can I risk having them on set? can I risk bringing them onto set? And then your skills go at the bottom of your resume in a simple list. This is my opinion. It's not the only or perfect way to format a resume. Some of the resumes that folks have submitted today were done by their talent agents. So hopefully we see a couple of other formatting options that are just as clear and just as good, right? Talent agents are, if they've got time to help you out with this stuff, talent agents are the ones who have the most information about what works with casting directors, because they're the ones who over and over again have actually sent resumes to casting directors and seen whether or not that helps their actors get work or not. So if this is simple, your name, age, height, weight, eye color, hair color. If this was a resume that you were submitting to agents to try and get a talent agent, if you were, say, 15, 16 or over, maybe you could put your own contact information here. I think it would still be like a professional move to include your parents' name, and contact email. That's sort of up to you if you're in your late teens. Certainly the agents are going to want to talk to your parent regardless before they even think about signing you up, because they want to know what is it going to be like working with the parent and what is it going to be like working with you. Film and television comes first, right? And so what you would do is you would put the title of the movie. So really simple, 3 columns: title of the movie, and then the size of the role, right? So awesome movie, actor, and then the way that I generally prefer to format is the name of the director and then a slash and the name of the production company. And because this reads as super crystal clear, easy, professional. Then I can glance down, I can see the names of the movies, I can see the size of the roles. Now, of course, if it was a CV, right, if it was the kind of resume that listed everything you did, maybe you would want to put the name of the character, but don't put that on your resume. It's possible that they saw that show, maybe, but it's very unlikely. Even if you are Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, right? Like if you've got down here on the theater live performance, Romeo and Juliet, I would put lead and then in brackets Juliet, right? So even if you are like the #1 lead, I would still put lead and then in brackets the name of the character, so they can glance at it and see, okay, she's played 3 leads, 4 principal roles and 3 actor roles. Right, so actor, principal, guest star, supporting, recurring, lead. So that's those are professional categories. If you've worked on professional films, if you've worked on indie films, then you just kind of take your best guess. Actor is 6 lines or less. Principal, is 6 lines to a couple of pages. Guest star, you are a couple of pages or more. Some kind of significant character in the movie. Supporting, you're showing up repeatedly through whatever it is, the TV show or movie, because you're supporting, you're part of the action. Recurring typically means that you are in multiple episodes of whatever it is. And lead obviously is like sort of the top few people who the show is about, the movie's about you. So if you are one of the people on the sports team, the underdogs make good sports team, and if that's a feature film or a TV show, then you're a lead. You're a lead, and you could also list it as recurring. And sometimes somebody will put that as series lead. If you are the sister or the best friend of somebody who's on the underdog, team that's going, that's going to make good, you're supporting. If you are the childhood nemesis of somebody on the team and you show up for a single episode to like bully them and you never are seen again, you're a guest star. If you are the person who works at the sports store, who has a good conversation with the person who's on the team about how this gear that they're getting is going to help them, then maybe you're a principal role. And if you are the person in the dodgeball game at high school who says "heads up" and hucks a ball at their head, and you're seen once, you have that one line, "heads up," and you're seen for 5 seconds on camera, you're an actor. So that hopefully that makes sense. Now if you're listing theater credits, you could put things like chorus or ensemble. Remember that this is for decision makers. And so the reason this goes first, even if there's very little of it, is that's what they care about. That's what they're looking at. They're like, has this person ever worked before? And this is one of the reasons it is so important to get independent films and student films on your resume. But if they're only looking at it for 10 seconds and they see that this part here is blank, has absolutely nothing, then that's a red flag for them. They're like, okay, so you want me to pay you, to be on set the very first time ever, and you don't know maybe where to stand or where to go or what words we use for things, and what if you get there and you freak out, because that's happened to somebody in the producer's history or the director's history at some point, and so it's a red flag for them if you have absolutely zero. So it doesn't matter how bad the student films or independent films are, put them on there. And you didn't get this from me, although I'm recording this and putting it out in the world, so if it's a high school film, you could be sneaky about it, because really they're looking for professional credits here, and then everything else they're like, okay, those are credits, but they're not professional. Like, right, the 10-second version. So you don't need to put Brookswood Senior Secondary, right? If I was listing a couple of credits from the high school that I went to, I would list the name of the director, who they're not going to recognize anyway, and then a slash, and I'd put BSS. Or if I really wanted to be forthright, I'd put Brookswood Sec or something, right? But I'm not going to spell it out, because I don't want to advertise like, hey, I did these in high school. In the same way, if I've done a Vancouver Film School film, I don't put Vancouver Film School. I put Amanda Brooke VFS. And the ones who are from Vancouver know what VFS means, and everybody else looks at it and they're like, oh, this is probably a school. But you don't need to spell it out. You're just trying to get them to glance at it. When you get down to the theater live performance, name of the play, size of the role, the name of the director, name of the production company, training. I would recommend just 2 columns. Name of the class, nice space on that column, and then the name of the teacher or the production company, and if you've been doing it for a while, then you put 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, 2 classes. And if it's less than a year, just don't put that part, right? Don't say like 2 weeks. That's one of those, like, you don't have to tell them everything. You just want to make this grab their attention in those 10 seconds. So then we can look at the resume and go, okay, right, they've done some theater, and they've done a couple of classes, and we're going to do this with some of your resumes in just 1 minute. At the very bottom, you put a list of special skills, just separated by commas. This is my advice. You do with it as you will. I would say keep it really simple, physical skills, and then you put basic, intermediate, advanced. If they want more details, they can ask you. I would say anything that you can do at a 3 out of 10 skill level, you can list as basic. I had to learn how to juggle when I went to theater school after high school, and I put it on my resume thinking, okay, well, I just listed it with some other things. I think I worked on set 3 different times as a juggler. All of them were sort of like, slightly below, actor, but I was surprised, by how often it came up, because anytime they're hiring somebody for film and TV, what they want is somebody who's a good actor first. And can also do whatever it is well enough that the camera can pan by it for 10 seconds and you can look like you know what you're doing. So physical skills, performance skills, singing, dancing, sports. If you speak other languages, this is a great spot to put it in. Accents, I would recommend only putting in if you are good enough at them that you could pass as a speaker in that language. Right now, which means that if you are an adult, you should really only put them if you are so good that you can speak and have people believe that you're from that area. As a younger person, the competition is going to be a little bit less, and so you can list them if you're good at them. If you've done it with your friends lots and lots, and you're pretty confident that you can pull it off, okay, great, go for it. And then if you want to throw some like weird human ability or strange quirk, there at the very end, you want to be like, and I can put both feet behind my head, and I have a pet squirrel. Then that's where you would put it, just at the very end of the special skills, because it's the very last thing they're going to see if they're scrolling down. And it's possible that if something true about you that's kind of fun, they'll be like, oh, really? You can put both feet behind your head? That's crazy. Even if up here it says, gymnastics, advanced, if you've got one of those sort of like weird personal things, you put it on there, because that's, I think, the place for a little bit of personality. There's not a lot of space for personality on this resume template, because like I said, it's a marketing tool. You want people to be able to scan very quickly. I also wanted to show you Bonnie Gillespie. So if you wanted tons of information, you would have to email me for this, because it's from her published book. And so I don't feel comfortable posting it anywhere online, but I am comfortable emailing it to you directly if you want a copy. So this is a chapter from Bonnie Gillespie's book, Self-Management for Actors. Fantastic. She is an LA-based, used to be a casting director, and then wrote a weekly column for, I think, Backstage West, that was then picked up by Breakdown Services. And so she was an indie casting director, and was also doing this at the same time, helping actors. And she wrote this fantastic book that I got a copy of a couple of years ago. So your resume is not a list of everything you've ever done. It's a recipe for how to cast you next. This is the way that she talks about resumes, and you can see that she's got lots of detail here, right? Resume feng shui, include your contact information, and then details about how to include that contact information. So she's a casting director. She's seen more resumes than me as an acting teacher. She's seen more resumes than the talent agents have. She's seen more resumes than anybody. And she's somebody who then transitioned from casting into helping people and writing about this for a living. So she has written a lot of detail here. Right, the third column, how to list your billing. Now, some of the things that she talks about are American, for the American market, so you do have to take it with a grain of salt. But if you're the kind of person who wants loads of extra information, email me. I will send this to you. So about those theater credits. Look, I know you love theater. Da, 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 da. Since our business is risk assessment, we need evidence of your work in exactly the area we're looking to hire you. Show us how to cast you. Right? You don't have to list, and you don't want to list like every theater production you did at your school. You just want to put a couple of them, so that they can see that, yeah, you played some leads. Early stage resumes will often like list commercials. At a certain point you may choose, or your agent may advise you to put like commercials available upon request. Right? Her thing is don't list your commercials even if you have a conflict. Da, 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 right? That's her advice. Minimize all the other stuff. Right? I think this is good advice. Consider getting rid of it. People who have been professional models, at your age, don't list it on their resume, because they don't want people to glance at it in 10 seconds and think, oh God, entitled airhead. No disrespect to the hardworking models of the world. I just am talking about, like, if they're glancing at it, you want to control the stereotypes and prejudices and how they're going to influence their opinion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So details. So I can send you a copy of that. Now let's quickly look at some of these resumes. So here is, let's start with Sarah's resume, because Sarah was super clear. She was like, it's a mess, and I looked at your template, but I haven't done anything yet. So she very kindly allowed us to look at her resume. Right, so what we've got is the columns, at least make this really easy to read. This is a kind of a resume that we're going to, that's going to be sent to a talent agent. Now, I would say right away, it doesn't matter where the location is. Like, nobody cares. I would say put the name of the director and / production company. And it's not that, okay, nobody cares. That's harsh. That's harsh, Sarah, and I'm sorry. I mean that it is not relevant. What I want, and you've got I've got the name of the role, as though I know all of these productions. List them. That's why I would say list the names of the productions, the size of the role, and then the director, and then the production company. So the production company, even if you have to like cheat and shorten it, I think is better than the location. You also you'd want to put this, like, see how this is tiny and kind of hides, right? These are way bigger. You'd want to put theater, nice and big, and this film and television, TV stuff, you'd want to, of course, move up, right? So, excellent. And this would be choices, lead, VWS, 1,000 miles per hour, supporting, Capilano University, or CapU. The training, okay, super simple. And again, I don't think they need to know where it is. This, I would also take this and move it right to the top, because this sounds fancy. And maybe it's not, but like as a non-dancer, I'm like, ooh, wow. The Latvian National Ballet and the Ballet Russe BC, like that sounds fancy. The way you've got your training listed, if I only look at the first thing, I see that you took a runway print class, that you care more about modeling than acting, and that you list it right at the top of your resume. That's the way it looks, right away. It's not a list of every training you've done, not a list of everything you've done. Special skills, blah, 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 leave these off. Actually, maybe you want to put them right. Maybe that's what you want to use as your thing, like, right at the very bottom. And again, if I only read the first thing, this is just not nearly as impressive as this. So you might only want to lead it. You might only want to put this on there. Because I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. So she's got a little bit of film, a bunch of theater, and she's a really successful dancer. 10 seconds. Also, you want to reduce it to a single page. Probably want to take this off as well. Just my opinion, but I think it's well supported. You saw that Bonnie said it in her book. She's got a lot more practice than I have. Okay, let's look at Zara's. Anytime, computer. I'm going to run out of batteries, so maybe I need to run into the other room. Okay, so profile summary. You definitely want to take this off entirely. She's a natural and talented. This is the way that Zara's mom thinks about her. Which is like, that's all great and good, but what we want is to be able to glance at it in 10 seconds and see this is a professional resume. Let us look at the headshot, to see what kind of person she is, or what kind of roles the actual decision makers think that she could be cast as. Okay, height, weight, date of birth, eyes, hair, size, skills. You want to take these off entirely. Because this is for them. This is for them to decide. This is for them to decide. This is for them to decide. This is interesting, but belongs at the very bottom in skills. This is also interesting and really useful. Belongs at the very bottom in skills. And the experience. You just want to put that into those 3 columns, right? So it's, everybody, actor, the UBC theater. Right, and that's cheating a little bit because it's UBC medical students theater, but like, why make it sound less professional if you can? Education and training, good. So, and then we've got her headshot down here, and we can talk about headshots and demos next time. Let's look at Lincoln's resume quickly. Okay, great. The character's talent agency, Toronto, Vancouver. So, right, so this is a professional resume that's going to go to casting directors. So obviously it doesn't have his mom's name and contact information on it. It says the character is probably at the very bottom. It's got all of their contact information, normal. And you can see that because it's a professional resume, aha, see, maybe Michael Bean knows what he's talking about, because the formatting is almost exactly what I'm talking about. Here's just the name of the project. Boom, glance at it in 10 seconds. Just the size of the role, and just the name of the director. Hasn't listed the production companies. So this is another totally legitimate way to format it, to leave off the production company and just list the director. If you've only got productions that are at your high school, might be a good way to like cheat and not actually be cheating, because you're doing what the professionals do, right? Lincoln's agent helped him make this. Commercials, training, right? Private ongoing, on camera, Ropes West, right? So this is great. So if I'm a casting director and I look at this, I'm like, cool, look at this. He's been in some professional stuff, or at least some stuff that looks like it might be professional. Oh yeah, that one's definitely professional. Right, in order to, that's why I like the production company. If you've got some professional credits, especially, just listing the production company clears up any confusion about like, is that a professional project or is that just like a student project that's got a cool name? He's got some commercials, he's got a bunch of training, and then he's got these cool skills. Lincoln, the only thing that I might do here is take off which regiment you're with and just put Army Cadets. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, why has he got this weird number thing? Anyway, it was the only thing that caught my eye. I was like, that's a lot. I'm going to pull up Josh's resume for you, and then I have to, somewhat embarrassingly, run and get a power cord, and I'll be right back. So Josh's resume we've got here again, it's a professional resume. You can see the agent and the agent information, contact information is going to be down here. What we've got is name of the project, size of the role. Perfect. And because with Josh's resume, the studios are more recognizable than the directors. He's led with the production companies, so that we can go, oh wow, professional, Disney Channel, Disney, UBC, right? Not University of British Columbia, but just UBC, and the name of the director. A couple commercials, theater. If you were going to edit this, Josh, I would suggest changing these, and putting like George Banks was the dad in Mary Poppins. So what's that supporting? Probably the lead if you're really stretching. Kids on Broadway, like I don't know, Donkeys. One of the is one of the leads in Shrek, isn't it? So lead supporting. I would list the size of the roles as opposed to what they are. Again, just to make it easier to glance at them. One-on-one coaching, ongoing, I would take casting director workshops off your resume entirely. Casting directors don't care who else you've taken workshops with, and since you've already got an agent, there's no need to do that. You also might want to consider just trimming this a little bit. Like the fact that you've done a lot of training. Well, I don't know. You make that judgment call for yourself. There's a lot of stuff here, so that's good. That tells me if I'm glancing at it that you're taking it really seriously. Actually, okay, I rescind that completely. You want to keep all of this because just as you get more credits, you might want to sort of like when this is hard to fit on a single page, that's when you might want to trim down the training, and find a way to like keep it reflective of all that you've done, but just list it in a shorter way. Right, and then right here at the bottom, and Sarah, this is what I was saying, might want to put the awards, that you've won right at the bottom, right? So in place of, and that's the place where if you didn't have an award, you would list, like, pet squirrel, or like, bottle cap throwing champion of the world or whatever. But but Josh has won a couple of awards, and so he's put them right down there. Animal handling, singing, athletics, languages. Good. So this formatting for special skills is a little bit different, than what I recommend, but really easy to read. Like that's the main point. 10 seconds, single word. It doesn't say singing and then, singing tenor and something, and a quote from my singing coach. It just says animal handling, singing. So if I'm like, oh, interesting. Can you ride a horse? Then I'll ask. Right? Because I've glanced at it in 10 seconds and then I want to know more. So there's a like blitz overview of a professional resume formatting. I hope there was some good and useful stuff in there. Let's unmute everybody and open it up to questions. So this is the spot, anybody watching at home, where if you don't want the Q&A, you can stop now and be like, whew, that was a lot of resume information. I'm gonna go on to that Facebook group and I'm gonna download that resume template and I'm gonna make my own resume. Okay, now, questions, comments, anything that stood out for you? Hannah.
Does like the agent, do they make the resume like without, like, do they already have a resume like ready?
It is possible that your agent will assist you with your resume, that they'll either have a template that they'll cut and paste everything into. Yeah, Lincoln, yours did?
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Did your agent make your resume, or did they just give you the like?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but because the actor, remember, is totally responsible for themselves, participating in your own resume is wise. And if you show with your resume, you are, whoever's making that horrible sound, please stop. If you show with your resume that you send your agent, that you've taken the time to learn what a professional one looks like, it just is a good sign.
Right.
Right. Because you're not approaching an agent and saying, "Hey, teach me everything. I haven't bothered to learn any of it." Instead, you're showing up and saying, "Hey, okay, like I know you're an expert in some things that I can't know by just like watching stuff online, but I've learned everything that I can." Yeah, Lincoln.
With my agent, she asked us for all my acting info, all of that. And we've just been adding on to it as we've gotten stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Any other questions about resume formatting or sort of like how to put that out into the world in a professional way? Sarah.
I wanted to ask, because when I started to redo it, I stopped because I couldn't figure out how to make it with the 3 columns. Do you know like a good application or something I could make it on?
Oh yeah, I mean any word processing program will be able to do that.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck, just hop onto Google and enter the name of whatever program you're using and go like, how do I make 3 columns in name of program? And you'll get way more detailed descriptions than I could give you because they'll be posted by experts. Like the internet is a wonderful thing, and you can probably get 9 detailed answers to that question in 30 seconds.
Okay,
yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm just going to recap then because I want to make sure that you have context for understanding the questions that you might want to ask Candace tomorrow. The producer's in charge of the what?
The money.
Money! Somebody who's not Josh, the director's in charge of the what?
Story.
Story, thank you, excellent. The casting director, who we're going to see tomorrow, is in charge of the?
Auditions.
Do we have to qualify every time that like we already heard from Josh? You're good, man. I just know that like Josh would be like yes with everyone because he's like super keen. Yes, the cast director's in charge of the auditions, and so that's what we're going to find out more about. Sort of what is it like to be the person who is receiving all the stuff from talent agents and choosing a few actors, and what is it like to be the person who's like wanting all those actors to be awesome so that they'll look good to the director and producer, and just find out more about that decision-making process and that job. The talent agent's in charge of what?
The actors.
Actors! And then the actors are in charge of, come on everybody.
Everything.
Nice.
The work.
No, the actors are in charge of myself. They're in charge of yourselves. Which includes, yes, it includes making sure that you are skilled enough that when you go into the audition, you know what you're doing. And it also includes having your materials ready to help your talent agent promote you. Or if you're at the stage where you're approaching talent agents, to put together professional materials. There's some other resources on the Biz Studio website. There's a how to choose a talent agent PDF, and then there's a new version of that or like a more detailed version that includes a list of agents and their websites and things. That again, I'm just in the process of editing. But if you want the like not ready to be posted online but almost mostly done version, then email me and I'll send that to you directly. Okay. Oof, this one went a little longer than normal, but hopefully there's some good stuff for you in there. Thanks for making the time. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Candace Elzinga will be here talking about casting.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.